What up, guys? If you happen to be landing on this video, I just want to do a quick little intro to say this is part 2 of a philosophical ramble that if I'd have stuck it in one video it would have been a bit too chunky and it made for an easier render. So if you haven't seen part 1, jump on it because this video is the continuation. So here we go. Tally ho. Goop out bow. But this is where I'm going to now bring in Regis. Regis. Oh, bro. Oh, man, that was cool in episode Ardyn fighting against a young Regis. That was great. And I definitely think we have the explanation now on why Regis didn't recognize Ardyn. You know, there was the pan from the normal-looking guard. And Regis said, no, what do you want, soldier? And then it sort of panned across and went to Ardyn. But Regis didn't actually react. Like, whoa, this guy just transformed in front of me. So we can assume that Ardyn was in disguise the entire time. They didn't know his face. They didn't know what he looked like. But of course, Regis must have known that Adagium was back because the weapon. So he didn't know what Ardyn looked like, but he knew he was back. So that explains that, or what I thought was a really confusing element going into it. But it kind of got explained really well. So would we say more of that, say what Regis does, which is a more virtue-based theory, or his approach. No, it's nothing like Somnus's. Somnus's was to destroy as many people, whereas Regis's was more a protect. We work on the virtues. We don't kill our own. It was, even scaling back how much they went out and explored. Exploration was what brought back the Scourge. So instead, Regis holds himself in, his entire people behind a wall. He don't let people in, don't let people out. He doesn't murder his people, he doesn't subjugate them. From what Regis thinks he's doing is he's creating the most amount of happiness. He's not trying to actively participate in a war, at least not to an aggressive degree, like say Niflheim is, who Niflheim think that they can take over, and by taking out the Lucians who are hoarding this power, that will spread the most good, whereas Regis thinks not interfering with the world, as we clearly saw even that, which most of us would rally behind Regis as being the least villainous solution. Like if all humanity just rallied to protect against the Scourge, like Dave did and Lestalum at the end of the game. No, hide behind your walls, protect your people, and just try to stay safe from the Scourge. But even we saw that decision, which seems so good, we saw the results that it had. It spread the war to kill thousands of people who relied on Regis. Galad was destroyed. And while Nyx and Libertas didn't blame Regis for it, we certainly look at like Drautus. Look at the vengeance that he brought on Regis, because in his mind, his action of inaction, that was the greatest crime. That was a villainous. Oh, it's great. It's great. And now moving on to the last person's approach. So Noctis. Well, actually, no. Before I move on to Noctis, because with the philosophy with Regis, his moral approach of things, while it could be kind of Kantian or virtue, trying to do what is seen as morally good based on virtues, which is strong intuitions. Humans don't naturally have the urge to kill each other and murder each other, and that's more the grounding sense of those. But I'd actually say there's even moral relativism with Regis. Moral relativism being from the culture he's from and the time he's from. Were his actions done in the best regard of his society? For example, it'd be so easy for us to look back a few hundred years and pick the kindest, nicest slave owner there was and say, you are a disgusting, despicable human being. You had a slave. Well, at the time, based on the culture he was in, that wasn't a morally wrong thing to do. And I mean, there's loads of scenarios like that in terms of religion and things aware, who's allowed to vote, who's not allowed to vote. In your culture, you could be offending what a few hundred years from now people will see as the most despicable thing you could have done. But in your culture, you could have been really good. You could have been as moral in an immoral situation. I mean, you guys get it. You guys get what I mean. And with Regis, from where he lived, and the duty that he had been passed down, could be argued that he was working in the best way he can. But again, it did spread to innocence. It did cause bad. So I think it makes it so. But moving on to Noctis. So I think Noctis is his view. I mean, definitely virtue based. Definitely based on his personal principles. But again, even that, when we say that, some philosophers will call that emotivism. Something that if you say torture is bad, killing is bad, doing that is bad, lying to a friend is bad, you're just emoting. You're emoting a personal opinion. There's actually no substance to what you're saying. You're just expressing a personal opinion. Now, if I say breaking into somebody's house and stealing their stuff is wrong, no, emotivism will say I'm just emoting an opinion. I'm having an emotional response based on my view of the world and what I think those actions create, even though what those things create aren't necessarily true. It could just be my emotional view or my emotional experience of those things. No, a huge one that comes in this, something like abortion, for example. A lot of people are immediately going to answer what they feel about that based on emotion, based on their experience of their view of what life is and at what stage it does develop. And as close as science is going to try to get to answer that, there's always going to be a different view on it. And emotivism, I'd say, is a huge part of what also went around with Noctis. Let's just say, for example, Ardyn killing Luna. In Noctis' eyes, not a more villainous act in the damn world. But if we look at Bahamut's view, killing Luna was the best option. The best option. And in fact, we actually now need to question whether Ardyn really killed Luna or whether it was Bahamut. I actually think when we look at it, Bahamut straight on killed Luna. Of course he did. I mean, when Bahamut said you have to be the one who spreads the darkness and end the line of Lucis, those are two things that Luna has no picture in. Luna is the only one who can actually actively go around and stop the spread of darkness, so she needs to go. And it actually makes so much more sense now that Luna and Noctis never had a date scene. Of course, I'm never going to say I'm glad they didn't have a date scene. I think they should. But if they had the wedding or date scene and Noctis and Luna would... Who's to say on their honeymoon night, Luna might not have got pregnant, and that would have continued the line of Lucis. So the fact that Ardyn did intervene before they even had any kind of chance to connect, when you actually look at it from Ardyn, or again pulling the strings above, Bahamut's view of what needs to be done, and actually gave, according to what was said, Ardyn no choice, that he had to do that. He had to before the story even got to before the characters even got a moment. It hurts me so bad, but when I look in that point of view, I'm like, wow, actually that's pretty deep. In about the worst, I wish that didn't happen kind of way. I mean, I just wish you did something other than dogs. Like the whole dog messaging thing. I just didn't like it, to be honest. I think that's one of the things I'll still come out not liking. Umbra and Prina, dog male. I think they should have become ninjas. So yeah, you've got emotivism for Noctis, and while he would have seen that as wrong, it was his emotion saying it's wrong. You've just killed Luna, you've just killed... But according to the grander scheme of things, that view would have been completely wrong and born out of just a narrow emotional view. But then we've also got, of course, Kantian still. Noctis does try to live by the virtues, but I wouldn't say he's that strict with it. You know, Noctis would tell a white lie if he needed to. I mean, he certainly would kill if he needed to, and he certainly did. So he doesn't follow moral ethics that closely. And what I would actually more put Noctis under, when I was just researching for this video, is I'd say consequentialism. It's very similar to utilitarianism, and some say sort of it encompasses under it. But it's not so much about whether you're trying to do the most good or whether the most bad. It's about acting right or wrong depending on the results of the act. So the results can in some cases be to destabilize a situation. You know, for example, going out and looting, well, not looting, but going out, marching through the streets and holding up traffic, you know, staging a protest of some sort. It could be seen as breaking many, many laws, but it's based on what the act is intended to do. And especially with Noctis, most all of his actions, and I think this is why we can gravitate around him as the hero, is because, especially with his sacrifice, the act of suicide when it comes to consequentialism, it's about the result of it, not so much the action you're taking. But so suicide is neither seen as good nor bad in this kind of scenario. And of course, utilitarianism branches all under that. You even get things like hedonism. Hedonism would be more like, say, Snow in Lightning Returns. The way he's running the city. What was it called again? Anyway, you know the one I mean if you play Lightning Returns. Snow turns this city into just this beer, drink, arena, fighting, dancing, it's all about human pleasure. Human pleasure is the forefront of importance. You know, it doesn't matter whether it makes people less effective, less able to be cohesive, live cohesively with others, to run their jobs. Of course, with this scenario, the world was ending, so maximizing human pleasure was a kind thing to do in that scenario, even if it was bad for society. It was just really interesting, especially with like Noctis with his consequentialism. So those are the main 5 characters. Have I covered them all? I think I have. Not just Bahamut. Yeah, right. Oh, that's all 5. 5 different ways that the Star Scourge was morally approached. And the thing is, when you take the time to actually look at each individual one, there's so many different views that you can take. Even with Bahamut, even with how bad and dickish and arseholey he was. I mean, you could have seen the exact same thing happen during Solheim era. You know, there could have been the exact same scenario, because a lot of 15 is about, you know, fate repeating itself, and so much so more with Noctis and Ardyn. Noctis had to make a knowing sacrifice, as did Ardyn. Noctis had to watch his girlfriend die, so did Ardyn. Noctis had to make a hard moral decision, so did Ardyn. But you could definitely argue that Noctis is no different to Ardyn. Like, Ardyn started with the exact same tension. It's just that even with all those scenarios, Ardyn just had it 1,000 times more. It's the similar relationship between like Noel and Caius. I'm talking a lot about 13 today. Both had like the same duty, the same starting, but one experienced what the other did, or had to experience, over a hugely magnified time and situation. Now, I won't say much about Caius and Noel, but you immediately get, if you've played the game, you know what I mean. Because the question there was, no, was what Noel did any better than what Caius did? And indeed, would Noel have been able to do what Caius did? Would Noctis have been able to have done what Ardyn did? No, would his moral integrity have stayed intact? Because that's another whole part of moral views, is how far do you stay with them? How long do you stick with them until they eventually snap? Because, you know, the difference is that Noctis had his girlfriend killed by a complete stranger. Ardyn had it from his brother. He had a betrayer attached. Noctis, while his throne was destroyed, and his father and his kingdom destroyed, and that was the thing he had to deal with. Ardyn had to deal with it being stolen from him entirely, with no hope of it ever returning again. Amplified. No, Noctis had to deal with the moral dilemma of killing a few people, you know, to get to his journey, to be able to then, you know, become the King of Light and save it. Ardyn has to eradicate most of humanity and plunge it into 10 years of darkness. So everything was amplified for Ardyn 1,000-fold. And that's why I love the parallel, that how far until someone snaps, and every man has his breaking point. And same with Noel and the same with Noctis. If you snap those two characters, they both end up looking like their main villain, their main counterpart. Wow. And there it is. I think that's the best way I'm going to explain it. Nothing is either good or bad. Only thinking makes it so. And it's the questioning. It's the questioning, and not the immediate dropping into camps and positions. Because I've already seen it. I've already seen some people saying, no, he didn't do anything. Some people saying, no, Ardyn is delivered us. No, he's not. Some people Bahamut, and Somnus. And some people generally engaged in locked-on disputes about it, where they think that they can conclusively decide in this story who was right and wrong, and who wasn't, and argue with someone else. And I feel like that misses the entire point. So I feel like the reason why I love episode Ardyn, and I love all of that, is because it is set in such a unobvious, unblack and white scenario. And we went from thinking that Bahamut at the end of 15 was our savior who came to stop the big bad Ifrit and the big bad Ardyn, and then all of a sudden we're playing the big bad Ifrit and the big bad Ardyn, and we're there to stop the big bad Noctis, big bad Noctis, big bad Bahamut, and even just the naive Noctis. And the only thing I want to finish this video on is because the reason why I always went into my theories that, you know, was Ardyn really doing things for the better good? Did he know this was way to eradicate the Scourge? Well, Ardyn didn't say it outright, because he was more about vengeance at that point. It was his imperative just to go for that. I feel like he could have, because we've got to say canonically he accepted Bahamut's decision. You know, he submitted. He basically went along with Bahamut's plan, staged the whole thing. You know, never killed Noctis. Instead, helped him ascend to the King of Light. So while Ardyn didn't straight out say, I have the chance to get rid of the Scourge, and like that didn't seem like his main goal in things, I actually think when we look at the actions of Ardyn, that healer, that instinct to try to save the world from the Scourge, it remained, because he could have declined Bahamut's offer, and he could have just gone and killed Noctis. There would have been nothing stopping him still doing what he did. But the fact that he didn't just kill Noctis and wipe the line out, he groomed Noctis to become the King of Light, to follow through the fate of what Bahamut ordained, as much as he hated it. And I think that says a huge amount about Ardyn. Huge. Because, frankly, again, going based on that decision that you can let the line of the ones who betrayed you kill you, you have to let them kill you? The ones who betrayed you, even though you know you were wronged and you were the better, he allowed that to happen, and he allowed the gods, the ones who turned their back and betray him, he followed what they had ordained, and that must have been a hard pill to swallow. But I'm going to go on the sense that after he killed Somnus, his vengeance to be tempered down just enough, not fully, just enough to take that option where the healer, the one, the man whose role was to save lives, not to take them, that duality that existed in his mind, I believe that in a really condensed, crazy, mixed, elaborate, awesome, sexy way, because Ardyn is a very suave gent, I believe it came through, and I just love it. I think it was great. So there we go, guys. Those are my thoughts coming out of episode Ardyn. I really want to know what you guys think, especially on all of this. Go deep, go crazy, go ham. Hit the notification, hit the bell button, because I'm definitely going to be bringing out some other vids very soon. Got a WoF one, some more 15 ones coming, and 2019 as a whole, 7 Remake, we're going to be hearing stuff. Various presentations, and I'd love to go on another journey. And once again, if you want to have a Mog of No Consequence, with or without the Final Fantasy Peasant title, because it's done up in the sexy Ardyn text format, you can even go for a hoodie, you can go for a mobile case. If you guys want any of that, it supports the channel, it supports some of the artists and moderators we have over on the Facebook community, and I have loads of shit to purchase and experience. But cool, guys, go to the comment section below, blow it up. Until the next video, love you guys. Goodbye.
Now it is over, Majesty. What will you do? Banish the demons and bring peace? Erase me from history once more?
This time, you can rest in peace. Close your eyes forevermore.